Central Park, late golden hour. A 5-year-old boy in a tiny camel hair coat stands frozen on the path, tears carving clean lines through the dust on his cheeks. Hundreds stream past, joggers, nannies, tourists, none stop. I do. Piccolo, va tutto bene, I murmur in Italian, kneeling so the hem of my trench pools on the gravel. The second the words leave my lips, his sobs hiccup into silence, dark eyes locking on mine like I'm the only safe thing in the world. Then the air changes. 6 men in charcoal suits slice through the crowd, earpieces glinting. Behind them strides the tallest, navy shirt rolled to the elbows, ink crawling down one forearm, watch catching the sun like a warning. The boy bolts. Papa. The man's face fractures from stone to something almost human as he lifts the child against his chest. Over the small shoulder, obsidian eyes find me and do not blink. Ronald C. Dorsey. Even the wind seems to hush when he says it. He sets the boy down but keeps one hand on a narrow shoulder, the other already reaching toward me. Parla Italiano, he says, not a question.
Si.
Studio, viaggi istinto. I swallow. I just didn't want him scared. Little Adriano tugs my sleeve. Grazie, signorina. Then buries his face in my coat. Ronald's gaze catalogues every breath I take. The frayed cuff, the cheap watch, the tremor I can't hide. Name: Alexandra Garner. A nod, slow, predatory. Miss Garner, you have my gratitude. I back away, pulse hammering. Anyone would have. No, he cuts in, voice velvet over steel. They wouldn't. I melt into the crowd, legs shaking, the echo of Italian still warm on my tongue. By the time I reach the subway stairs, I've almost convinced myself it was a dream. Almost. Because the black Suburban idling at the corner rolls forward the exact second I do, headlights off, engine purring like it's been waiting all day. I told myself one lost kid in a big city wasn't going to rewrite my life. I had rent, double shifts, and a past I kept zip tight. But that night, when my phone buzzed with a single text from a block number, asterisk, asterisk, we should talk. RCD, asterisk, asterisk. I knew the park had already redrawn. The black Suburban peeled away from the curb the moment I hit the bottom step of the 59th Street station, tires whispering like a secret. I told myself it was nothing. New York is full of ghosts in tinted windows. Still, I kept my head down all the way to Brooklyn, hoodie up, earbuds in, but no music playing. Just the thud of my own pulse. By the time I unlocked the deadbolt on my 3rd floor walk-up in Bushwick, the park felt like a fever dream. I kicked off my boots, dropped my bag, and stared at the cracked ceiling until the adrenaline ebbed. One lost kid. One grateful dad. End of story. Except my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number asterisk. We should talk. RCD. My thumb hovered. Delete. Block.
Done.
I did all 3 in one swipe, then tossed the phone face down like it might bite me. Scammers, stalkers, weird rich guys, whatever. I had rent due in 6 days and a double shift tomorrow. That was the only danger I had room for. I showered, changed into an oversized Columbia t-shirt that still smelled faintly of the library carols I used to haunt, and crawled into bed. Sleep came in fits. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Adriano's small voice, asterisk grazie, signorina asterisk, and felt the weight of Ronald Dorsey's stare pinning me to the gravel path. Across the river, in a penthouse that took up the entire top floor of a pre-war building on Central Park West, Ronald C., Dorsey stood at the window and watched the city glitter like a circuit board. The glass reflected a man who hadn't blinked in 10 minutes. Adriano was asleep down the hall, thumb in mouth. The stuffed giraffe Alexandra had absent-mindedly tucked under his arm, still clutched tight. Ronald had carried him in from the car, changed him into pajamas, read the same truck book twice. Routine. Muscle memory. But the whole time his mind replayed a single loop, her voice curling around Italian vowels like smoke, the way Adriano's tears had dried the instant she spoke. Papa. The boy had asked on the ride home, nose pressed to the window. Will the park lady come tomorrow? Ronald had answered with a non-committal hum. Inside, something feral paced. Now, in the dark, he loosened his tie, and rolled the sleeves higher, exposing the ink that mapped every debt he'd collected and every life he'd ended. The city below paid its taxes in fear. He collected in blood. And yet a stranger in a thrift store trench coat had walked into his orbit and left with his son's trust in her pocket. He turned from the window. Marco stood in the doorway, hands clasped behind his back, the picture of disciplined patience. "Find everything about her," Ronald said. Voice low, lethal in its calm. "Name, address, blood type. First fucking nightmare she ever had. Everything." Marco didn't ask why. He simply nodded and vanished. Ronald poured 2 fingers of Burlo. Didn't drink it. He stood over Adriano's bed instead, watching the rise and fall of a small chest. The boy had spoken more Italian in 10 minutes with the woman than he had in the last year with his tutors. Ronald's own mother had been the last person to coax full sentences from him in their childhood dialect. She died when he was 12. Adriano had never met her. He left the glass untouched and went to the office that doubled as a war room. By 3:17 a.m., the first file landed on his desk. Alexandra B. Garner. DOB March 14th, 1998. Current address *312, Himrod Street, Apartment 3B, Brooklyn. Employment Waitress, The Corner Bistro, Columbus Circle, 2 years. Barista, Bean and Leaf, Flatiron, evenings 18 Mo's. Education BA Comparative Literature, Columbia University, 2020. Study abroad, Università di Firenze, 2018. Languages English, native, Italian, fluent, Spanish, conversational, French, reading. Criminal record none. Financials $11,400 credit card debt. $2,100 medical collections, 2022. Checking balance, $487.12. Family Mother, deceased 2015. Father, unknown. No siblings. Digital footprint Instagram private, 312 followers. Last post, photo of Florence skyline, 14 months ago. Spotify playlist titled, Rainy Shift Survival. Ronald flipped the page. A grainy DMV photo. Alexandra at 22, unsmiling, hair longer, eyes older than they had any right to be. Another page, hospital intake form, 2022. Reason for visit, panic attack. Prescribed, lorazepam, 30-day supply, never refilled. He traced the edge of the photo with a thumb that had snapped a man's neck 48 hours earlier. Marco returned at dawn with a tablet. Surveillance footage from the park, enhanced, zoomed. Alexandra kneeling, coat flaring like wings. Adriano's face buried in her neck. Ronald's own hand reaching, stopping inches from her shoulder as if burned. She works the lunch rush today, Marco said. Then the coffee shop at 4. Lives alone. No pets. No boyfriend. No plants, even. Ronald didn't look up. Tail her. 2-man rotation. She feels a breeze. I want to know whose breath it was. Marco hesitated. Boss. She's nobody. Clean as they come. Ronald's laugh was soft, humorless. That's the problem. I woke to the alarm I'd set for 9:47 a.m., exactly enough time to shower, braid my hair, and catch the L into Manhattan. The text was gone, the number blocked, but the phantom buzz crawled under my skin like a splinter. The corner bistro smelled of bacon grease and burnt espresso. Saturday brunch crowd. Finance bros in Patagonia vests, influencers angling for the window light. One regular who always asked for his eggs, whispered to, not yelled at. I smiled, I poured, I pocketed tips in crumpled 5s. At 2:58 p.m., I stepped out the back door for my break, leaning against the brick alley wall, letting the October air slap me awake. That's when I felt it. Eyes. Not the casual glance of a passerby. The weight of being studied. I scanned the alley. Dumpster. Fire escape. A black sedan idling at the far end. Too clean for this neighborhood. The window reflected sky. Nothing more. Still, my break ended 3 minutes early. The coffee shop was worse. Bean and Leaf sat under a scaffold on 23rd, foot traffic a river. I steamed oat milk, drew rosettas, dodged the manager's passive-aggressive post. It's about latte art consistency. Every time the bell chimed, I looked up too fast. At 8:12 p.m., I counted my tips, $1.78, enough for groceries and half the cone bill, and stepped into the chill. The sidewalk pulsed with Chelsea gallery hoppers. I pulled my scarf higher. Half a block down, the same black sedan crawled at walking pace. Not imagination. Not coincidence. I ducked into a bodega, heart jackhammering. Grabbed a bottle of water I didn't want, paid with shaking hands. When I came out, the car was gone, but the feeling stayed. Ronald watched the live feed on the wall of screens in his office. For angles, Alexandra weaving through the crowd, scarf slipping, eyes darting. She looked small, breakable, the kind of small that made a man want to build walls around it. She ditched the tail for 30 seconds in the bodega, Marco reported. Picked us up again on 7th. She knows. Ronald's jaw flexed. Tighten it. I want her breathing room measured in inches. Marco cleared his throat. She deleted your text. Blocked the number. A beat of silence. Then, send another. Different phone. Same message. Marco left. Ronald stayed, replaying the park footage on loop. The moment Adriano's hand slipped into hers. The moment her shoulders curved protectively around a child who wasn't hers. The moment she looked up at him, Ronald, and didn't flinch. He didn't understand it. Desire he knew. Fear he manufactured. Loyalty he bought. But this quiet pull felt like standing at the edge of something bottomless. His phone buzzed. A new file. Addendum. Medical records. 2022. Patient. A. Garner. Diagnosis *, acute stress reaction following eviction notice and mother's hospice transfer. Notes * patient declined social work referral. Paid final $11,200 hospital bill in $20 increments over 14 months. Ronald closed the file. The burlo finally touched his lips. It tasted like ash. I made it home just after 10, climbing the stairs 2 at a time, key scraping the lock like a scream. Inside, I triple-checked the deadbolt, then wedged a chair under the knob for good measure. My studio looked smaller than ever. Futon, hot plate, one window overlooking a rusted fire escape. The life I'd rebuilt from nothing. I peeled off my uniform, pulled on sweatpants, and opened the fridge. Yogurt past its date. Half a sleeve of Ritz. I took the crackers to the futon and stared at my phone. Another buzz. Unknown number *. We should talk. RCD. Same words. Different digits. I didn't delete it this time. I stared until the screen went black, then stared some more. My reflection in the dark glass looked like a stranger. Cheeks hollow, eyes too wide. I set the phone on the milk crate I used as a nightstand and pulled the blanket to my chin. Outside, a car door closed. Soft. Deliberate. I didn't look out the window. I already knew what I'd see. Ronald stood on the sidewalk 3 stories below, collar up against the wind, hands in the pockets of a coat that cost more than Alexandra's annual salary. The building was a dump, peeling paint, buzzer system long dead. He cataloged every detail like a threat assessment. Marco waited in the driver's seat. We going in? No, Ronald's voice was rough from disuse. She's scared enough. He watched her window. The light stayed on for 43 minutes, then clicked off. He stayed another 20 until the street settled into the kind of quiet only Brooklyn achieves at 2 a.m., distant sirens, a drunk singing Sinatra off-key, the low hum of a city that never sleeps, but sometimes pretends. When he finally slid back into the car, Marco asked, "What's the play, boss?" Ronald didn't answer right away. He rolled the window down, let the cold bite his face. "Tomorrow," he said, "we give her a reason to come to us." Marco nodded and pulled away from the curb. In the rear view, the building shrank, but the image of that single lit window burned behind Ronald's eyes like a brand. Inside the apartment, I lay awake counting heartbeats. Somewhere between 312 and 313, I made a decision I didn't understand yet. I unblocked the number and typed 3 words I'd regret before sunrise. Alexandra asterisk. Talk about what? I hit send before courage failed me. The message showed delivered. No typing bubbles. No response. But across the river, in a penthouse fortress, Ronald C., Dorsey smiled for the first time all day, a slow, dangerous curve that had nothing to do with mercy. The hook was in, and the line went taut. The elevator climbed so smoothly, I didn't feel the motion, only the pressure in my ears. Floor 38. The numbers glowed red, then white, then vanished. When the door slid open, the air smelled of cedar and money. A man in a charcoal suit, different from the park, same earpiece, gestured me forward without a word. My sneakers squeaked on marble the color of storm clouds. The hallway stretched like a runway, flanked by glass walls that looked down on Central Park 38 floors below. The same park where everything had started. It felt smaller from up here, toy-sized, harmless. I clutched the strap of my canvas tote like a life raft. I'd worn the least threadbare thing I owned. Black jeans, white button-down, blazer from a consignment shop in Williamsburg. Still, I felt like a child playing dress-up. The guard stopped at a set of double doors. Walnut, no handles. He pressed his thumb to a panel, the door side apart. Another gesture, inside. The office was bigger than my entire apartment. 1 wall of glass, 1 wall of books, 1 wall of screens cycling silent security feeds. A single desk the size of a dining table, empty except for a closed laptop and a crystal tumbler with a fingerprint of amber at the bottom. Ronald C. Dorsey stood at the window, back to me, hands clasped behind him. Navy suit today, no tie, shirt open at the throat. The city sprawled beneath his shoes like a conquered kingdom. Miss Garner. His voice carried without effort the same velvet blade from the park. He didn't turn. Close the door. The guard obeyed for me. The click echoed. I stayed just inside the threshold, pulse thudding in my wrists. Your text said 11. I'm early. Punctuality is a virtue. He faced me then, and the room shrank. Same obsidian eyes, but in daylight they caught flecks of gold. The tattoos on his forearm flexed when he moved, black ink curling like smoke. Sit. 2 chairs faced the desk. 1 leather, 1 leather. I chose the closest, perching on the edge. The leather sighed under me like it disapproved. Ronald rounded the desk but didn't sit. He leaned against the front edge instead, arms folded, studying me the way a chess player studies a board after the first unexpected move. I owe you an apology, he said. The words were so far from what I'd braced for that I blinked. For scaring you. A flicker of something, regret, crossed his face and vanished. The cars, the texts. My men are thorough, sometimes overzealous. I swallowed. I noticed. He inclined his head. It stops today, unless you want it to. The silence stretched, thick enough to choke on. I filled it with the truth. I don't know what I want. I just know I didn't sleep. Something softened at the corners of his mouth. Not a smile, something quieter. Adriano did, clutching the giraffe you tucked under his arm. He asked if the park lady was an angel. Heat rushed my cheeks. He's 5. 5-year-olds say things. 5-year-olds don't speak Italian to strangers. Ronald pushed off the desk, closing the distance in 2 strides. He didn't crowd me, but the air shifted, charged. You calmed him in 30 seconds. His tutors take 30 minutes to get a single syllable. I looked at my hands. Languages were always easy for me. After. I stopped. The sentence had teeth I wasn't ready to show. After what? His voice dropped, coaxing. I met his eyes. After my mom got sick. Hospitals are loud. Italian was quieter. I practiced in waiting rooms, so I wouldn't hear the machines. The admission hung between us, raw and ugly. I expected pity. Instead, his gaze sharpened, like I'd handed him a puzzle piece he'd been hunting for. The door opened without a knock. Adriano barreled through, sneakers squeaking, curls wild from sleep. He wore a tiny navy blazer over dinosaur pajamas someone had tried. Miss Alexandra. He launched himself at my legs, arms locking around my knees like a koala. The impact nearly toppled me. I steadied myself on the chair arm, laughing despite everything. Hey, Piccolo. I ruffled his hair. Nice outfit. Papa said business casual. He beamed up at me, then at his father. She came. Ronald's expression did something complicated, pride, wonder, a flash of pain so quick I almost missed it. He crouched to Adriano's level. Give us 5 minutes, Campione. Then gelato. Adriano's eyes went saucer-wide. Stracciatella? Whatever you want. Ronald tapped the boy's nose, then stood. Adriano scampered out, door clicking shut behind him. The room felt smaller again. Ronald returned to the desk, opened a drawer, and slid a single sheet of paper across the polished wood. Heavy cream stock, Dorsey Family Enterprises letterhead. Employment contract. Position * private Italian tutor to Adriano C. Dorsey. Compensation * $22,000 per month, paid biweekly. Duration * 6-month trial, renewable. Location * primary residence, Upper West Side. Benefits * health, dental, 401k, housing stipend if required. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. 22,000 a month. My current combined income was 3,000 on a good month. I could pay off the medical debt in 90 days. I could breathe. I set the paper down like it might burn me. This is insane. It's fair market for fluency and discretion. He said it like he was pricing a painting. You'd work 3 afternoons a week. 2 hours. Adriano picks the curriculum. Picture books, cartoons, whatever keeps him talking. I shook my head. Rich people don't hire strangers off the street for their kids. I'm not people. The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile. And you're not a stranger. Not to him. I stood, needing distance. The city glittered behind him, indifferent. I have jobs. Rent. A life that doesn't involve security details, and I gestured at the contract, the office, him. Whatever this is. Ronald didn't move, but the air tightened. You're drowning, Alexandra. I can see it in the way you hold your shoulders. Like you're waiting for the next wave. The accuracy stole my breath. I turned to the window so he wouldn't see my eyes sting. You don't know me. I know you paid your mother's final hospital bill in $20 increments for 14 months. I know you haven't taken a vacation since Florence. I know you flinch when car doors slam too close. His voice was closer now. I hadn't heard him move. I know my son smiled for the first time in a year because you spoke to him in a language that sounds like home. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass. Below, a yellow cab crawled like an ant. I can't be bought. I'm not buying you. A pause. I'm offering you air. I turned. He was 3 feet away, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. The predator at rest. My son speaks to no one, he said quietly. Except you. The words landed like a vow. I felt them in my sternum, a bruise I hadn't earned. I need to think. I managed. He nodded once. Take the weekend. The contract's yours to sign or burn. Either way, the tale stops tonight. He reached into his pocket, produced a business card. Thick stock, simple black font. Ronald C. Dorsey, CEO. A single phone number beneath. If you decide yes, text the word gelato. My driver will pick you up Monday at 3. I took the card. Our fingers brushed. Static jumped between us. I tucked it into my blazer pocket like contraband. At the door I paused. If I say no... His eyes flicked to the contract, then back to me. Then you walk out of here and never see us again. Your choice. The elevator ride down felt longer. The lobby marble was colder under my sneakers. Outside, the October wind whipped my hair across my face. No black SUVs. No shadows. Just the city, loud and indifferent. I walked to the subway, card burning a hole in my pocket. At the turnstile, I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the keypad. I typed gelato, then deleted it. Typed it again. Deleted. The train roared in. I boarded with the crowd, clutching the pole as we hurtled underground. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Eyes too bright, mouth set in a line I didn't recognize. At my stop, I climbed the stairs into the Brooklyn dusk. The brownstone looked smaller, the cracks in the sidewalk deeper. Inside, the radiator clanked like an old man clearing his throat. I dropped my tote, kicked off my shoes, and stood in the middle of the studio, contract in one hand, business card in the other. $22,000 a month. 3 afternoons a week. A little boy who called me Signorina, like it was a prayer. I set the contract on the milk crate, sat on the futon, stared at the numbers until they stopped looking real. Across the river, Ronald stood at the same window, city lights flickering across his face. Adriano slept down the hall, giraffe under one arm, Italian picture book open to a page of smiling gelato cones. His phone buzzed on the desk. A single word from an unknown number. Gelato. He closed his eyes, exhaled like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. Then he smiled, slow, sharp, and just a little bit terrified. The line went taut again. This time, she'd pulled back. Monday, 2:57 p.m. The black Suburban idled at the curb outside my building like a panther pretending to be a house cat. I'd spend the weekend pacing the 6 steps from futon to hot plate, contract spread open under the single lamp. $22,000. 3 afternoons. A little boy who needed words more than I needed distance. I signed at 4:12 a.m. Sunday, hands shaking so badly the pen left comet trails. Then I folded the paper into my blazer pocket, slept 3 hours, and spent the rest of the morning scrubbing the studio until my fingers pruned. As if cleanliness could scrub away the choice. Now the driver, Vincent, polite, silent, held the rear door. I slid in. The leather smelled new. The partition hummed up before I could ask where we were going. I didn't need to. Upper West Side. The penthouse. The ride blurred. I watched Brooklyn give way to Manhattan, brownstones to glass towers, my reflection superimposed over both, like a ghost. My phone buzzed. Unknown number asterisk. Door code 3819 star. Elevator to PH. Welcome, Miss Garner. I saved the contact as RCD before I could overthink it. The building swallowed me. Marble lobby, concierge who knew my name, private elevator that opened directly into the foyer. Walnut floors, skylight 3 stories up, air scented faintly of lemon and cedar. A woman in a crisp navy dress, housekeeper, maybe, took my coat without a word. Miss Alexandra. Adriano's voice ricocheted off the vaulted ceiling. He skidded around the corner in socked feet, nearly colliding with my knees. You came? I crouched instinctively. I told you I would, Piccolo. He grabbed my hand and dragged me through an archway into a sunlit room that looked like a children's library had exploded in the best way. Floor-to-ceiling books, a miniature table shaped like a cloud, a rug patterned with constellations. A single sheet of construction paper lay on the table. Benvenuta, Miss A, in purple crayon, every letter backward. My throat tightened. Did you do this? With Papa, he said proudly. He said welcome in Italian is benvenuta, but I wanted it big. Ronald appeared in the doorway, shoulder against the frame, sleeves rolled, ink peeking. He insisted on the glitter glue. I drew the line at stickers on the walls. Adriano giggled and launched into a rapid-fire explanation of the solar system rug. I let the Italian wash over me, answering in kind, watching his face light up with every correct noun. 20 minutes in, he was conjugating a veer without prompting. Ronald never sat. He leaned, he paced, he refilled Adriano's water glass without being asked. His gaze tracked my hands when I gestured, my mouth when I pronounced glee. I felt it like sunlight through glass, warm, inescapable. At the end of the hour, Adriano hugged my waist. Tomorrow? Wednesday, I corrected gently. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. He pouted, then brightened. Can we read Il gatto col capello? Asterisk nel capello asterisk. I corrected. And yes. Ronald walked me to the foyer. The elevator waited, doors open like a mouth. Vincent will drive you, he said. I can take the train. Vincent will drive you. Not a request. I stepped into the elevator. The doors closed on his unreadable expression. The money hit my account that night. $22,000. I stared at the notification until the numbers stopped looking like a typo. I paid the medical debt in full, $11, $200 gone with one click. The relief was so sharp it hurt. Wednesday, I brought Pinocchio. Adriano met me at the door with a construction paper fox mask. We read on the rug, voices overlapping, laughter echoing. Ronald appeared halfway through, leaning in the doorway again, arms crossed. He didn't speak, but when Adriano stumbled over Bugiardo, Ronald supplied the word softly, eyes on me. Friday, we baked biscotti in the cavernous kitchen. Flour dusted Adriano's curls like snow. Ronald walked in mid-recipe, sleeves pushed higher, and without a word began cracking eggs one-handed. His knuckles were bruised, a fresh cut bisecting one tattoo. I pretended not to notice. Papa makes the best anise flavor, Adriano announced. Ronald's mouth curved. Family recipe. He stayed for the entire bake, measuring vanilla with the precision of a chemist, letting Adriano lick the spoon. When the cookies came out golden, he slid the tray onto the counter and met my eyes over Adriano's head. Stay for coffee. It wasn't a question. We sat at the island, Adriano between us, legs swinging. The coffee was dark, bitter, perfect. Ronald poured without asking how I took it. Black. He knew. Adriano chattered about school, about the planetarium trip, about how Miss Alexandra said Stell like his nana used to. Ronald's gaze flicked to me at the mention of his mother. Something shuddered behind his eyes. After Adriano was tucked in for his nap, Ronald led me to the library. Floor-to-ceiling windows, dusk bleeding purple across the park. He poured 2 fingers of something amber into crystal glasses. I owe you another apology, he said. For the coffee? I tried for levity. For the shadows. He gestured vaguely toward the street below. You've noticed them. I had. The same 2 men in rotating sedans, always within a block. Never close enough to speak to, never far enough to ignore. It's not necessary, I said. It is. He swirled the liquor, but didn't drink. Adriano's mother, he stopped, jaw working. She didn't die in a car accident like the paper said. She was taken. 3 years ago. We got her back in pieces. The words landed like stones in still water. I set my glass down untouched. I'm sorry. Don't be. His voice was rough. Be careful. The men outside aren't for show. I swallowed. I'm just a tutor. You're the first person he's spoken to in full sentences since. He looked at me then, really looked. You're not just anything. The silence stretched, thick with unsaid things. I broke it first. I should go. He didn't stop me. The shadows followed me home. I didn't protest again. Week 3, Adriano greeted me with a drawing. The 3 of us under a crayon sun. Me with yellow hair, Ronald with a black scribble beard, Adriano in the middle holding both our hands. He'd written our names in block letters. Asterisk Papa. Miss A. I.O. Asterisk. Ronald found me staring at it taped to the playroom wall. He asked if you could stay for dinner, he said quietly. I told him to ask you himself. Adriano appeared at my elbow. Please? Papa makes carbonara. It's the best. I looked at Ronald. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes, God, his eyes, begged. One dinner, I said. The kitchen was warm with garlic and pancetta. Adriano set the table with the seriousness of a sommelier. Ronald cooked barefoot, sleeves rolled, moving with the same lethal grace he brought to everything. I grated cheese. Our knuckles brushed over the bowl. Neither of us flinched. At the table, Adriano dominated the conversation, school, dinosaurs, the gelato flavor he wanted to invent. Ronald listened like every word was a revelation. When Adriano yawned mid-sentence, Ronald scooped him up without breaking stride. Bedtime, Campione. Adriano's arms looped around his neck. Missa reads better. Ronald's gaze flicked to me. 1 chapter. I followed them down the hall to a bedroom, painted midnight blue, with glow-in-the-dark stars. Adriano crawled under the covers, eyes already drooping. I read Buonanotte, Luna in a whisper. By the time I reached the old lady whispering hush, he was out. Ronald stood in the doorway, shoulder against the frame again. The hallway light carved shadows across his face. He hasn't fallen asleep to a story since he was 3, he said. I closed the book. He's a good kid. He's lonely. The admission seemed to cost him. I give him everything except what he needs. I didn't know what to say to that. In the hallway, he stopped me with a hand on my wrist, light, but I felt it in my spine. The shadows stay, he said, but they'll keep their distance. You have my word. I nodded. His thumb brushed the inside of my wrist once, deliberate, before he let go. The elevator ride down was quiet. Vincent held the door. No shadows followed me to the curb, but I felt them anyway. Week 4, I brought Where the Wild Things Are in Italian. Adriano roared like Max, crowned himself king of the wild things. Ronald watched from the doorway, arms crossed, a smile ghosting his mouth. After the lesson, he caught me in the foyer. Walk with me. It wasn't a question. We ended up on the rooftop terrace, city lights sprawling like spilled diamonds, wind whipping my hair from its braid. He leaned against the railing, hands in his pockets. Adriano asked if you could come on Saturday, he said. The planetarium. He wants to show you Jupiter. I laughed, surprised. He's 5. He'll forget by tomorrow. He won't. Ronald's voice was soft. He doesn't forget you. The wind carried the scent of his cologne, cedar and something darker. I wrapped my arms around myself. This is getting complicated, I said. I know. I'm just the tutor. You stopped being just anything the day you knelt in the park. I looked out over the city. I can't be part of your world. You already are. He didn't touch me, but his voice did. The question is how deep. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Saturday, I went to the planetarium. Adriano held my hand the entire time, explaining orbits in breathless Italian. Ronald trailed behind, hands in his coat pockets, eyes on us like we were the only real things in the universe. Afterward, gelato in the park. Adriano fell asleep on Ronald's shoulder on the way home. I watched the city slide by, his small hand still curled around my finger. That night, I paid off my credit cards. The balance read 0 for the first time in years. I stared at the screen until it blurred. Sunday, I woke to a text. RCD**. Dinner. Tomorrow. Just us. Adriano has a sleepover. I typed 3 different replies. Deleted them all. Finally. Alexandra**. 7. The reply was instant. RCD**. Vincent at 6:30. Wear the blue dress in your closet. 3rd hanger from the left. I stared at the message. I didn't own a blue dress. But when I opened my closet Monday morning, there it was, sapphire silk, simple lines, my exact size. A note pinned to the hanger in sharp handwriting. For tomorrow. **. I should have been angry. Should have left it hanging. Instead, I wore it. The shadows were there when Vincent picked me up. But for the first time, they didn't feel like a cage. They felt like a promise. The sapphire dress hung in my closet like a dare. I'd worn it once. Dinner on the terrace, candlelight flickering across Ronald's face while Adriano slept downstairs. One night, one kiss stolen against the railing, city lights blurring below us. I'd told myself it was a mistake. I'd told myself a lot of things. Wednesday, 6:47 p.m. I stepped out of the bodega on Himrod Street, plastic bag of milk and eggs swinging against my thigh. The October air had teeth now. I pulled my coat tighter. The shadows had been lighter lately, Vincent dropping me 2 blocks from home. No tail in sight. I'd started to believe the danger was a ghost story Ronald told to keep me close. I was wrong. They came from the alley between the laundromat and the pawn shop. 2 men, both taller than me, both wearing the kind of coats that hid more than wool. One had a scar slicing through his left eyebrow. The other chewed a toothpick like it owed him money. Alexandra Garner. Scar said my name like he'd practiced it. Brooklyn accent, but the vowels were wrong. Jersey, maybe. Walk with us. I froze. The bag slipped from my fingers. Eggs cracked on the pavement, yellow bleeding into the cracks. I don't know you, I managed. Toothpick stepped closer, breath sour with garlic. You know Dorsey. That's enough. Scar's hand clamped my elbow. Gentle, almost polite. Stay away from the boss if you value your life. Next time, we won't ask nice. My pulse roared in my ears. I opened my mouth to scream, but the sound never came. A black SUV screeched to the curb, tires smoking. Doors flew open. Vincent and another man, Marco, I think, moved like they'd rehearsed this 1,000 times. Vincent's hand was on my other arm before I blinked, pulling me backward. Marco had a gun out low, not pointed but ready. Back off, Marco said. Voice flat. Now. Scar released me, but didn't step away. Tell your boss the Morettas send regards. Vincent shoved me into the SUV. The door slammed. The world tilted as we peeled out, milk carton rolling across the floor mat. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook so badly I couldn't find the seatbelt. Vincent's eyes met mine in the rear view. You're okay, he said. Breathe. I wasn't. I wasn't anywhere close. The penthouse elevator opened directly into the foyer. Ronald was waiting. He took one look at my face, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Adriano was nowhere in sight. Thank God. Kitchen, he said. Not a request. I followed on legs that didn't feel like mine. The island was already set with a glass of water and a towel. Ronald's knuckles were white around his phone. Tell me, he said. I did. Every word. The eggs. The scar. The Morettas. My voice cracked on the last syllable. Ronald's jaw flexed. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The silence was violence in a suit. Marco entered, nodding once. Confirmed. Moretti soldiers. Low level. Message delivered. Ronald's fist came down on the marble. The glass jumped, water sloshing over the rim. They touched her. Warned, Marco corrected. No harm. Yet. Ronald's voice was lethal quiet. Get eyes on every Moretti crew in the 5 boroughs. I want names, addresses, blood types. Tonight. Marco vanished. Ronald turned to me. The fury in his eyes wasn't for me, but it scalded anyway. You're a target now, he said. Because of me. Because of him. I wrapped my arms around myself. I didn't ask for this. I know. He dragged a hand through his hair, pacing like a caged animal. Christ, Alexandra, I tried to keep you clean. The tail was supposed to be invisible. The job was supposed to be safe. Safe. I laughed, sharp and brittle. You pay me $22,000 a month to read picture books. Nothing about this is safe. He stopped pacing. You want out? The question hung between us like a blade. I thought of Adriano's crayon drawing. The way Adriano said "Stell" like a prayer. The way Ronald's hand had trembled when he'd brushed flour from my cheek in the kitchen. No, I whispered, but I need the truth. He exhaled, slow, like he'd been holding his breath for years. The Morettas run heroin through Red Hook. I shut down their pipeline last month. Cost them 8 figures. They've been looking for leverage. His eyes met mine, steady. You're it. I sank onto a stool. The marble was cold through my jeans. What happens now? Now. His smile was razor thin. Now I end it. He moved to the window, phone to his ear, voice dropping into a language I didn't know, Italian, but harsher, clipped. Orders. Threats. Promises of pain. I stared at the spilled water on the counter, watching it spread like blood. Vincent appeared in the doorway. Guest room's ready. She stays tonight. I opened my mouth to protest, but Ronald was already shaking his head. No arguments, he said. Not tonight. The guest room was bigger than my apartment. Bed the size of a small country, sheets that smelled like lavender and money. I showered in a bathroom with heated floors, changed into borrowed sweats that hung off my hips. When I came out, Ronald was in the hallway, sleeves rolled, bruises blooming across his knuckles like storm clouds. You hit someone, I said. Desk, he corrected. It lost. I almost smiled. Almost. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Adriano thinks you're having a sleepover. He's thrilled. I swallowed. I can't keep doing this. I know. His voice was raw. But I can't let you go. The admission cracked something open between us. I took a step closer. Tell me what happens if I stay. His eyes darkened. You'll see things. Hear things. You'll learn what I am when the lights go out. And if I leave. He didn't answer right away. When he did, it was barely a whisper. Then I lose the only thing keeping me human. I reached for him without thinking, fingers brushing the cut on his knuckle. He flinched, then stilled. I'm scared, I said. I know. His hand covered mine, warm, careful. But you're not alone anymore. Down the hall, a door creaked. Adriano's small voice called out, sleepy. Miss A. Ronald's eyes closed. Go. He needs you. I went. Adriano was sitting up in bed, hair wild, eyes wide in the glow of his nightlight. I had a bad dream. I slid under the covers beside him, letting him curl into my side. Tell me. Monsters took Papa. I kissed his forehead. Your Papa is the scariest thing in the city. The monsters are afraid of him. He giggled, then yawned. Within minutes, he was asleep again, breath warm against my neck. I stayed until his grip loosened, then slipped out. Ronald was in the hallway, watching from the shadows. He okay? He asked. He thinks you're a superhero. Ronald's laugh was soft, bitter. He's 5. I stepped closer. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow, I make sure no one touches you again. His hand lifted, hovering near my cheek, then dropped. Sleep. I'll be in the office. He walked away before I could answer. I didn't sleep. I lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the city breathe outside the windows. At 3:12 a.m., I heard voices, low, urgent. Ronald's, then Marco's. A door slammed. An engine roared to life below. By morning, the shadows were back. But this time, they weren't watching me. They were hunting. I found Ronald in the kitchen at dawn, sleeves rolled, coffee in hand. His eyes were bloodshot, but his voice was steady. Moretti's nephew, he said without preamble. The one with the scar. He's in a warehouse in Red Hook. By tonight, he'll wish he'd never learned your name. I poured coffee, with shaking hands. And then we wait. He set his mug down, stepped close. But you don't. You live. You teach Adriano his verbs. You wear the blue dress when you want to, not because I bought it. You breathe. I looked up at him. And you. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I make sure the monsters stay in the dark. Adriano bounded and then, dinosaur pajamas ask you. Miss A. Pancakes. I forced a smile. With chocolate chips. He whooped and ran to the fridge. Ronald watched him, something fierce and fragile in his expression. Later, in the playroom, Adriano conjugated Volera like a champ. I praised him in Italian, ruffled his curls. But my eyes kept drifting to the window, to the city beyond. The job wasn't innocent anymore. Neither was I. That night, Vincent drove me home. The shadows followed, but they weren't subtle now. 2 cars. Obvious. Deliberate. A message. I didn't sleep again. At 2:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. RCD**. It's done. Sleep, Alexandra. You're safe. I stared at the message until the screen went black. Safe. The word tasted like a lie, but I clung to it anyway, because the alternative was a darkness I wasn't ready to face. Not yet. The penthouse swallowed me whole. Vincent carried my duffel, 1 night's worth of clothes, toothbrush, the worn copy of L'Avventure di Pinocchio I couldn't leave behind, like it was contraband. The elevator opened into the foyer at 11:03 p.m., and Ronald was already there, sleeves rolled, shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there at dawn. No arguments, he said before I could speak. 1 week, maybe 2, until the Morettis blink. I opened my mouth, closed it. The memory of Scar's fingers on my elbow was still a bruise I couldn't see. My apartment has a patrol car outside and a new deadbolt. His voice was soft, lethal. You're here. Adriano's door cracked open down the hall. Bare feet pattered. He appeared in dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up like dandelion fluff. Miss A. Sleepy confusion melted into delight. Sleepover. Ronald's jaw flexed. Told you she was staying, Campione. Adriano launched himself at my legs. I caught him on reflex, the weight of him grounding me more than any argument could. Guest room's ready, Ronald said. Next to his. I followed, duffel bumping my hip. The room was pale gray, king bed drowned in white linens, windows facing the park now black with night. A single lamp glowed like a lighthouse. Adriano tugged my hand. Read. One chapter, Ronald warned. I read Pinocchio until Adriano's eyes fluttered shut mid-sentence, his small hand curled around my thumb. When I eased out, Ronald was in the doorway, shoulder against the frame, watching like he was memorizing the curve of my spine. He'll want you every night, he said quietly. I don't mind. His eyes flicked to mine. I do. The words hung, heavy with things neither of us would say. I slipped past him into the hall. He didn't move, so our shoulders brushed, cotton against cotton, heat against heat. I felt it in my knees. Bathroom's there. Kitchen's open. Help yourself. He gestured vaguely. I'll be up. He wasn't. I showered in water hot enough to scald, borrowed sweatpants and a t-shirt that smelled faintly of cedar and gun oil. The mirror showed a stranger, cheeks flushed, eyes too bright. I looked like someone waiting for something. At 1:17 a.m., I padded barefoot to the kitchen for water. The penthouse was a cathedral of quiet, city muted 38 floors below. Only the hum of the fridge and the distant tick of a clock. Ronald sat at the island, laptop open, coffee gone cold. He'd changed into a black t-shirt, tattoos stark against his skin. A bruise bloomed along his jaw, new. Couldn't sleep, he asked without looking up. New bed. I filled a glass from the filter. Paperwork. He closed the laptop. Moretti's nephew sang. Names, routes, the works. He won't bother you again. The water tasted metallic. You hurt him. I hurt a lot of people. His gaze was steady. Difference is, he deserved it. I set the glass down. Where does it end? He stood, rounding the island until he was close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his eyes. When they're too scared to start, his hand lifted, hovered near my cheek, then dropped. Go to bed, Alexandra. I didn't move. I'm not a prisoner. No, his voice was rough. You're a guest. With a lock on the outside of the door if you want it. I searched his face. Would you use it? A beat. If it kept you safe? Yes. The honesty stole my breath. I stepped around him, fleeing to the guest room. The lock clicked softly behind me. Morning came too soon. Adriano burst in at 6:42, armed with a plastic lightsaber. Miss A. Pancakes with Papa. I followed the smell of bacon to the kitchen. Ronald stood at the stove, barefoot, flipping pancakes with the same precision he used to end lives. Adriano climbed onto a stool, legs swinging. Chocolate chips. I asked. Ronald slid a plate across the island without looking. Already in the batter. We ate in companionable chaos. Adriano narrating a dream about flying dinosaurs, Ronald cutting pancakes into perfect squares, me trying not to notice the way his t-shirt stretched across his shoulders when he reached for the syrup. After breakfast, Adriano dragged me to the playroom for Il Gatto nel Capello. Ronald appeared halfway through, leaning in the doorway, arms crossed. He didn't speak, but when Adriano stumbled over Capello, Ronald supplied the word softly, eyes on me. The days blurred. Monday. I taught adjectives. Adriano labeled everything in the playroom. Asterisk grande tavolo, piccolo orso, papa forte star. Ronald watched from the doorway, a smile ghosting his mouth when Adriano called the rug morbido. Tuesday. Homework at the kitchen island. Ronald sat across from us, laptop open, pretending to work. Adriano needed help with subtraction. Ronald's hand covered mine on the pencil, guiding the numbers. His thumb brushed my knuckle. Neither of us moved for a count of 3. Wednesday. Rain lashed the windows. Adriano napped. I found Ronald in the library, staring at a photo on the mantel. Him, younger, arms around a dark-haired woman heavy with pregnancy. Her smile was sunshine. Elena, he said without turning. Adriano was 2 weeks old. I stood beside him. She was beautiful. She was light. His voice was raw. I dimmed it. I didn't know what to say. He set the frame down gently, like it might shatter. That night I woke to thunder. The guest room door was ajar. Ronald stood in the hallway, silhouetted by the city glow. Bad dream? I whispered. He shook his head. Checking locks. I stepped into the hall. You don't sleep. Not well. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You? Same. I hugged myself. This room smells like you. His eyes darkened. I can move you. No, the word came too fast. I like it. Silence stretched, thick with thunder and want. He pushed off the wall. Go back to bed, Alexandra. I didn't. I took one step closer. Tell me something true. His hand lifted, fingers brushing a strand of hair from my cheek. You're under my skin, and I don't know how to get you out. The admission cracked the air open. I leaned into his touch without thinking. His thumb traced my cheekbone, featherlight. Alexandra. Adriano's voice floated down the hall, sleepy. Miss A. Ronald's hand dropped. He stepped back, the moment fracturing. I went to Adriano, read until he drifted off again. When I returned, the hallway was empty. Thursday. We baked cantucci. Flour dusted Ronald's black t-shirt like stars. Adriano licked almond dough from his fingers. Ronald's hand brushed mine, reaching for the vanilla. Lingered. His eyes met mine over Adriano's head. Later came at 2:14 a.m. I found him on the terrace, city lights glittering below. Rain finally stopped. He didn't turn when I stepped out. Couldn't sleep again? I asked, thinking. He leaned on the railing, forearms corded. About leverage. I stood beside him. I'm not leverage. You are. His voice was soft. To them. To me. I swallowed. What does that mean? He turned, caging me against the railing without touching. It means I'd burn the city down before I let them near you again. The wind whipped my hair across his chest. He caught a strand, tucked it behind my ear. And it means, he continued, I'm trying not to take what isn't mine to take. My breath hitched. What if I want you to? His eyes searched mine. You don't know what you're asking. I know what I feel. He leaned in, forehead resting against mine. You make me want things I buried with Elena. I tilted my face up. Our lips brushed, not a kiss, a question. He pulled back first. Not like this. Not while you're here, because you have to be. I nodded, throat tight. When you choose it. His thumb brushed my lower lip. Not because the world's on fire. He stepped away, leaving me cold. Friday. Adriano had a fever, low, but enough to keep him home. I canceled my shift at the cafe. Ronald canceled everything else. We took turns with cool cloths and cartoons. At noon, Adriano fell asleep on the couch, head in my lap. Ronald sat on the floor, back against the couch, my fingers absently combing through Adriano's curls. He hasn't let anyone but me touch his hair since he was 3, Ronald said quietly. I kept stroking. He trusts me. He loves you. The words were simple, devastating. So do I. I froze. He didn't look at me, just reached back, hand finding my ankle under the blanket. His thumb traced the bone like a promise. I'm not asking for anything, he said. Just needed you to know. The fever broke by evening. Adriano demanded gelato for dinner. Ronald carried him to the kitchen piggyback, both of them laughing. I watched from the doorway, heart aching with something too big for the room. That night, I found Ronald in the library again. He was asleep in the armchair, book open on his chest. Asterisk le tigre de Montbrison star. His face was softer in sleep. The lines around his eyes eased. I took the book, marked his page, set it aside. He stirred. Alexandra? Go to bed, I whispered. He caught my wrist. Stay. I sat on the ottoman. He didn't let go. I used to read to Elena, he said, voice gravel rough. Every night, even when I came home with blood on my cuffs. I traced the scar on his knuckle. Tell me about her. He did. Quiet stories, her laugh, her terrible cooking, the way she danced barefoot to Sinatra. I listened until his voice faded, until his grip loosened, until he slept again. I stayed until dawn, watching the city wake up beyond the glass. Saturday. Vincent drove me to my apartment for more clothes. The patrol car was still there. My mailbox overflowed. Inside, the air was stale. I packed 2 weeks' worth, hesitated over the sapphire dress, left it hanging. When I returned, Adriano greeted me with a crayon drawing. The three of us on the terrace, city lights like stars. Casa, he'd written in purple. Ronald's eyes met mine over his head. She is slipping under my skin. I felt it too. The guest room door stayed unlocked, but I didn't sleep there anymore. The penthouse was too quiet at 2:47 a.m. I'd fallen asleep on the library couch again. Le Degree de Montbrison open on my chest, the lamp still burning low. Ronald's side of the bed, asterisk our asterisk side, though we hadn't named it, was cold. He'd kissed my forehead at midnight, whispered something about a meeting in Red Hook, told me to lock the door behind him. I hadn't. Now the silence pressed against my eardrums like water. I sat up, books sliding to the rug. The city beyond the windows was a smear of red and gold. Traffic lights, neon, the pulse of a metropolis that never slept. But inside, the air tasted wrong. Metallic. Electric. The elevator chimed. I was on my feet before the doors opened, barefoot on the walnut floor, heart already sprinting. Ronald stepped out alone. No Vincent. No Marco. Just him, coat torn at the shoulder, white shirt blooming crimson across the ribs, blood drying in a dark line from his temple to his jaw. His left hand cradled his right forearm like it didn't belong to him anymore. He saw me and stopped. The fury in his eyes guttered into something raw. Go back to bed, he said. Voice shredded. I didn't move. You're bleeding. It's not mine. A lie. The way he swayed told the truth. I crossed the foyer in 4 strides. Up close, the damage was worse. Lips split, knuckles pulped, a bruise blooming purple across his cheekbone. His pupils were blown wide, adrenaline still riding him hard. Sit, I ordered. He laughed, a cracked sound. You don't give me orders. Tonight I do. I took his good arm, steered him toward the kitchen. He let me. That scared me more than the blood. The island light flicked on harsh and clinical. I pushed him onto a stool. He went willingly, shoulders sagging like the fight had finally leaked out of him. I grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink, stocked like a triage station, gauze sutures, lidocaine, things I didn't want to name. Shirt off, I said. He hesitated, then peeled the ruined fabric over his head. The sight stole my breath. A jagged slice curved under his ribs, shallow but angry. Bruises layered like storm clouds across his torso. Old scars, knife, bullet, burn, mapped a history I'd only glimpsed. I soaked gauze in saline. This'll sting. Do it. I pressed the cloth to the cut. He didn't flinch, but his hand found my hip, fingers curling into the fabric of my borrowed t-shirt like an anchor. I cleaned the wound in silence. The only sounds is breathing and the distant wail of a siren 38 floors below. When I reached for the butterfly sutures, his voice stopped me. You should be afraid of me right now. I met his eyes. I'm not. You should be. His grip tightened. I just put 3 men in the ground. One of them begged. I didn't stop. The words landed like blows. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. Were they coming here? I asked. A muscle ticked in his jaw. They had your photo. Your address. Adriano's school route. My hand stilled. Then you did what you had to. He laughed again, bitter. That's the lie I tell myself, so I can sleep. But tonight, his voice cracked. Tonight I enjoyed it. That's what I am, Alexandra. That's the man you're patching up. I set the gauze down, cupped his face with both hands, forcing him to look at me. Blood smeared my fingers. I didn't care. You're the man who came home, I said. That's what matters. Something fractured behind his eyes. He leaned forward, forehead resting against my stomach, arms wrapping around my waist like I was the only solid thing left in his world. I felt the tremor in his shoulders, the way he fought to keep the sobs silent. I threaded my fingers through his hair, held him while the storm passed. Minutes or hours later, he pulled back, eyes red-rimmed but clear. I can't be normal, he said. I can't give you PDA meetings and Sunday brunches. I can't erase what I've done. I know, I'm not a good man. You're Adriano's father. My voice caught. You're the man who makes me feel safe in a city that eats people alive. He stared at me like I'd spoken in tongues. I should let you go, he whispered, before I ruin you. You already did, I said, and I'm still here. His hand slid up my spine, pulling me between his knees. I went willingly. He buried his face in my neck, breath ragged against my skin. I can't stay away from you, he said against my pulse. God help me, I've tried. I tilted his chin up. The cut on his lip had reopened, a bead of blood welled. I kissed it away, tasting copper and desperation. He groaned, hands fisting in my shirt, but didn't take more. Footsteps, small, frantic. Papa. We sprang apart like teenagers. Adriano stood in the doorway, blanket trailing, eyes wide at the blood. Ronald wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Hey, Campione. Bad dream? Adriano ignored the question. He ran straight to his father, arms wrapping around Ronald's neck, careful of the injuries. You're hurt. Just a scratch. Ronald's voice was steady again, the mask sliding back into place. He lifted Adriano onto his lap, wincing as the boy's knee pressed against the cut. Missa fixed it. Adriano turned to me, lower lip trembling. Monsters? I knelt so we were eye level. Your papa scared them away. For good. He studied me, then Ronald, then launched himself at me too, arms around my neck. Don't leave. I met Ronald's eyes over his son's curls. I'm not going anywhere. Ronald's hand found mine, squeezing once. A promise. I finished suturing the cut while Adriano watched, fascinated. Ronald told him a heavily edited story about catching bad guys who stole gelato trucks. Adriano giggled at the right parts, yawned at the end. Bed, Ronald said. Adriano clung to my hand. Miss a tux. Ronald's smile was soft, broken, perfect. Go on. I carried Adriano to his room, read Buonanotte, Luna, until his eyes fluttered shut. When I returned, Ronald had moved to the couch, shirt back on, blood cleaned from his hands. He looked exhausted, human, mine. I sat beside him. He pulled me into his side, without asking. I went. Tell me the rest, I said. He did. Quiet, clinical details, ambush at the docks, Moretti's lieutenant with a knife. The moment Ronald realized they had my photo taped to the dashboard of their van. His voice never wavered, but his arm tightened around me with every word. When he finished, silence settled like snow. I keep thinking, he said, if I'd been 5 minutes later. You weren't. He turned my face to his. I will burn every bridge the city has before I let them touch you. His thumb brushed my cheek. You deserve better than this. Maybe, I said, but I choose this. I choose you. The kiss was slow, careful, his lips still split, my hands trembling. It tasted like blood and forgiveness, and a future neither of us had earned yet. He pulled back first. Guest room still yours if you want it. I stood, took his hand. Not tonight. We ended up in his bed. Our asterisk bed now, though the sheets still smelled only of him. He fell asleep with his head on my chest, my fingers in his hair, the city quiet beyond the glass. I stayed awake, listening to his breathing even out, feeling the weight of his trust settle over me like a blanket. Morning came gray and drizzly. I woke to Adriano crawling between us, giggling at the sight of his father's bandaged ribs. "Miss a fixed papa," he announced. Ronald's eyes opened, soft with sleep and something that looked a lot like peace. "She did." Adriano snuggled into my side. "Pancakes." Ronald kissed my temple. "Chocolate chips." I laughed, the sound startling in its normalcy. "Extra." We cooked together, Ronald flipping pancakes one-handed, Adriano stealing chocolate chips, me setting the table with the good plates because today felt like it mattered. Halfway through breakfast, Ronald's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, thumb hovering, then silenced it. "Work?" I asked. "Clean up." He met my eyes. "It can wait." Adriano smeared syrup on his chin. "Can we go to the park later?" Ronald and I exchanged a look. The park, where it started, where everything changed. "Soon," Ronald said, "when it's safe." Adriano accepted this with the logic of a 5-year-old. I watched Ronald cut his pancake into perfect squares, the same way he'd done every morning since I moved in. The same hands that had ended lives hours ago now steadied a plastic fork for his son. The contradiction should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like home. Later, while Adriano napped, Ronald found me in the library. He didn't speak, just pulled me into his lap on the window seat, arms around my waist, chin on my shoulder. "I used to think love was weakness," he said against my neck. "You've ruined that theory." I turned in his arms. "Good." His kiss was deeper this time. No blood, no desperation. Just the slow burn of two people choosing each other in daylight. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, we stayed still, learning the shape of a future neither of us had planned. The violence wasn't over. I knew that. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I was part of it now. And somehow that was enough. The penthouse had become a heartbeat Adria and I shared, 3 rhythms in one space. Adriano's laughter ricocheted off the marble like coins in a fountain. Ronald's presence was the low, steady drum beneath it all, and I, somehow, had learned to breathe in time with both. 3 weeks since the night of blood. 3 weeks of mornings where Ronald kissed the corner of my mouth over coffee, of afternoons where Adriano conjugated verbs with chocolate on his chin, of nights where Ronald's hands mapped every inch of me like he was memorizing borders before a war. I no longer had a guest room. My toothbrush lived beside his. My clothes hung in the closet next to suits that cost more than my old rent. The sapphire dress had been joined by others, silk, cashmere, colors I didn't know names for. Ronald never asked if I wanted them. They simply appeared, tags cut, hangers spaced exactly 2 inches apart. He hovered. Not in the suffocating way I'd feared, but in the way a wolf circles its den. Always within sight, always listening. When I laughed at Adriano's mispronunciation of Arcobaleno, Ronald's had lifted from his laptop across the room, eyes softening. When Vincent drove me to the bodega for milk, Ronald texted before I reached the curb, "Text when you're back." When a delivery man lingered too long at the elevator, Ronald appeared in the foyer, shirt unbuttoned, tattoos stark, until the man found sudden urgency elsewhere. I told myself it was protection. I told myself a lot of things. Friday, 3:17 p.m. The playroom smelled of crayons and warm cookies. Adriano sat cross-legged on the constellation rug, tongue between his teeth as he colored a giraffe purple. I knelt beside him. Il libro della giungla opened between us. Asterisk balu asterisk aeon orso, he declared. Ma gli orsi non volano. Questo sì, I said, tapping the page. Aeon orso speciali. He giggled, launching into a wobbly Italian rendition of the bare necessities. I joined in, our voices overlapping, off-key and perfect. Ronald leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, a smile ghosting his mouth. He'd been there 20 minutes, silent, watchful, the way he always was now. His gaze tracked my hands when I turned the page, my mouth when I pronounced jungla. I felt it like sunlight through glass. The moment shattered with my phone. It buzzed on the table, unknown number, Florence, country code. I answered without thinking. Pronto. Alexandra. Ciao, tesoro. Professor Moretti's voice crackled with age and delight. I found your thesis notes in the archive. You left them in my pigeonhole, remember? The one on lingua materna and trauma. I thought you'd want them. I laughed, switching to Italian without noticing. Asterisk Professor, say on Angelo. Asterisk, I thought they were lost forever. Ronald went still. I didn't see it at first. I was too busy promising to email my new address, thanking the professor for the surprise, ending the call with a cheerful CI sentiamo presto. When I hung up, the room had changed. Ronald hadn't moved, but the air around him had frozen solid. His eyes, those obsidian eyes that softened for Adriano, that burned for me, were flat, cold, calculating. Ronald, I stood slowly. Everything okay? He didn't answer. Just stared at the phone in my hand like it was a loaded gun. Adriano looked up, confused. Papa. Ronald's voice came out clipped, arctic. Who was that? My old professor, I said, frowning. From Florence. He found some notes in Italian. Not a question. I blinked. Yes? He's Italian. I haven't spoken to him in years. Ronald's jaw worked. You never mentioned a professor. I never mentioned half the people I knew before this. I gestured vaguely at the penthouse, at us. It was a lifetime ago. He took one step into the room. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Ronald, what? Asterisk basta. Asterisk, the word cracked like a whip. Adriano flinched. I knelt instinctively, pulling the boy against my side. Asterisk piccolo, va tutto bene, asterisk. But it wasn't. Ronald's eyes flicked between us, me, Adriano, the phone, like he was solving an equation with missing variables. Upstairs, he said to Adriano. Now. Adriano's lip trembled. But Missa, asterisk now, asterisk. The boy ran. His door slammed down the hall. I stood slowly. You're scaring him. Ronald didn't blink. You speak Italian like a native. Fluently. Intimately. With someone I don't know. I laughed, sharp, incredulous. He's 78 years old and married to his research. He taught me Dante. People lie. About what? Thesis notes. My voice rose despite myself. Ronald, this is insane. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist, not hard, but immovable. You calmed my son in a park. You walked into my home. You sleep in my bed. And now some professor calls from Italy like it's nothing. I yanked free. Because it is nothing. His silence was worse than shouting. The afternoon bled into evening in suffocating quiet. Adriano refused dinner. Ronald locked himself in his office. I paced the library until the rug wore thin under my feet. At 8:42 p.m., the door opened. Ronald stood in the frame, suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled, knuckles white around a glass of something amber. His eyes were bloodshot, but his voice was ice. Pack your things. You're fired. The words didn't compute at first. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. He didn't blink. Ronald, you heard me. He set the glass down with deliberate care. Vincent will drive you home. The money's wired. You'll never want again. I laughed, broken, disbelieving. You're firing me because of a phone call? I'm firing you because I can't trust you. His voice cracked on the last word, but he didn't take it back. I stepped closer. Look at me. Look at me. Do you really believe I'd hurt you? Hurt Adriano? His eyes flicked to mine, then away. I believe you could destroy me, and I can't risk it. The air left my lungs. I turned, walked to the guest room. Asterisk my asterisk room now, though it had never been, and started packing. Jeans. T-shirts. The copy of Pinocchio. The sapphire dress stayed hanging. I couldn't touch it. Adriano's door creaked open as I passed. He stood in dinosaur pajamas, eyes swollen. Miss A. His voice was small. Why are you crying? I hadn't realized I was. I knelt, pulled him into my arms. I have to go away for a little while, Piccolo. No. He clung to my neck, sobs shaking his small frame. You promised. You said you'd stay. I know. My voice broke. I know I did. Ronald appeared in the hallway, jaw clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. He didn't move to comfort his son. Didn't look at me. Adriano pulled back, tears streaking his cheeks. Papa, tell her to stay. Ronald's eyes met mine, storm and sorrow, and something that looked like death.
She's leaving, he said.
Adriano screamed, a raw, animal sound, and ran to his room. The door slammed. Something crashed. I stood slowly. My duffel was light. My heart was heavier. Vincent waited by the elevator, face blank. I stepped inside without looking back. The doors closed on Ronald's silhouette, alone in the hallway, hands fisted at his sides, expression carved from granite. The ride down was silent. Vincent didn't speak until we reached the lobby. He'll regret this, he said quietly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Outside, the October air slapped me awake. The black SUV idled at the curb. No shadows followed me this time. Just the city, indifferent as ever. I climbed the 3 flights to my apartment. The new deadbolt gleamed. Inside, the air was stale, the futon cold. I dropped the duffel, sank to the floor, and let the tears come. Across the river, in a penthouse too big for one man and one heartbroken child, Ronald stood in Adriano's doorway. The boy had torn every drawing of the 3 of us from the walls. Crayon scraps littered the rug like confetti from a funeral. Ronald knelt, gathering pieces. One showed me with yellow hair, him with a black scribble beard, Adriano in the middle. Famiglia, it said in purple. His hands shook. He didn't sleep. At 3:12 a.m., he stood in the playroom, staring at the phone I'd left on the table. The call log glowed. Professor Moretti, Forenza. He dialed. An old man answered, voice thick with sleep. Asterisk pronto, asterisk. Ronald's Italian was flawless, rusty only with disuse. You called Alexandra Garner today. A pause. Asterisk C. Asterisk who is this? Her employer. She's no longer with us. I need to know what you discussed. The professor's confusion crackled down the line. Her thesis notes. From 2018. I found them in my office. She was thrilled. Why? Ronald closed his eyes. No reason.
Grazie.
He hung up. The phone slipped from his hand, clattered to the rug. He sank to his knees among the crayon scraps, head in his hands, and for the first time in years, Ronald C. Dorsey cried. Not for the blood on his hands. For the light he'd just extinguished. The elevator doors closed on Ronald's silhouette, shoulders rigid, fists clenched, eyes fixed on a point beyond me, beyond the penthouse, beyond anything I could reach. The hum of the descent was the only sound, 38 floors of freefall that felt like drowning in slow motion. Vincent didn't speak until we reached the lobby. He'll come around, he said, voice low. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was raw from holding back everything I wanted to scream. Outside, the October wind clawed at my coat. The black SUV idled at the curb, engine purring like a warning. I climbed in without a word. Vincent pulled away from the building, the city lights smearing into watercolor streaks across the windows. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass and watched the penthouse shrink, then vanish. Home smelled like dust and absence. The new deadbolt gleamed under the hallway light. Ronald's doing, of course. I dropped my duffel on the futon, the thud echoing in the tiny studio. The silence was deafening. No Adriano giggling over Arcobolino. No Ronald leaning in doorways, watching me like I was the only real thing in his world. I sank to the floor, back against the futon, knees to chest. The tears came then hot, ugly, unstoppable. I cried for the little boy who'd drawn us as a family in purple crayon. I cried for the man who'd kissed blood from his own lip and still looked at me like I was salvation. I cried for the version of myself that had believed love could outrun darkness. Relief flickered, faint and guilty. No more shadows in SUVs. No more waking to the sound of Ronald cleaning a gun in the dark. No more wondering if the next knock would be Vincent with news that changed everything. But the devastation was louder. I'd lost them. Both of them. And the hole they left was a wound I didn't know how to stitch. Across the river, the penthouse was a tomb. Ronald stood in Adriano's doorway at 11:43 p.m., watching the boy sleep with his giraffe clutched like a lifeline. The drawings were gone, ripped from the walls in a fit of 5-year-old rage. Crayon scraps littered the rug like confetti from a funeral. Ronald's hands shook as he gathered them one by one. A purple sun. A yellow-haired stick figure labeled Miss A. His own face, scribbled black beard, eyes 2 angry slashes. He carried the pieces to his office, shut the door, and locked it. The room was dark except for the glow of his laptop. He poured 3 fingers of Burlo, didn't drink it. Instead, he opened a file labeled Surveillance, Playroom, Audio Only. He'd had the system record every lesson, every laugh, every Italian lullaby. Insurance, he'd told himself. Now it felt like penance. He clicked the most recent file, Friday, 2:14 p.m. My voice filled the room, warm and teasing. Asterisk Bellu e un orso speciale piccolo. Gli orsi normali non ballano. Asterisk. Adriano's giggle. My laugh. The rustle of pages. Ronald closed his eyes. The sound of us, happy, whole, cut deeper than any knife.
He played it again, and again,
until the words blurred into static and his chest ached like a broken rib. At 2:17 a.m., Marco knocked.
Boss. Kid hasn't eaten since yesterday.
Won't touch the gelato. Keeps asking for her. Ronald didn't open the door. Tell him she's gone. He knows. He's crying again. Ronald's fist hit the desk. The glass jumped, wine sloshing over the rim like blood. Asterisk fury, asterisk. Marco's footsteps retreated. Ronald sank into the chair, head in his hands. The men talked in hushed tones outside. Asterisk, he's spiraling. Never seen him like this. She was the only thing keeping him human. Asterisk, he heard every word through the walls. Didn't care. He opened the surveillance app on his phone. My apartment building. Empty hallway. The new camera he'd installed without telling me. I wasn't there yet. Vincent had texted. Asterisk dropped her at 11:58. She's inside. Asterisk. Ronald stared at the frozen frame until his eyes burned. I had to let you go, he whispered to the empty room. Before you destroy me. The words tasted like ash. Back in Bushwick, I dragged myself off the floor at 3:06 a.m. The radiator clanked like an old man clearing his throat. I brewed tea I didn't drink, stared at the contract on the milk crate, and signed copy, the one I'd kept like a talisman. $22,000 a month. A life I'd walked away from twice now. I opened my phone. No messages. I'd blocked Ronald's number in the elevator, a petty act of self-preservation. I unblocked it.
Still nothing.
I crawled into bed fully clothed, shoes and all. The pillow smelled like nothing. Not cedar. Not gun oil. Not him. Sleep came in fits. Dreams of Adriano's small hand in mine, Ronald's voice in my ear. Asterisk, you're under my skin. Asterisk, waking to the sound of my own sobbing. Morning was gray and merciless. I showered until the water ran cold, dressed in the same jeans and sweater I'd worn yesterday. The mirror showed a stranger, eyes swollen, mouth set in a line I didn't recognize. I opened the door to leave for the cafe shift I'd never canceled. That's when I saw it. A single sheet of paper, folded once, slipped under the door. Heavy stock. No envelope. My name in sharp, slanted handwriting, A. Garner. I picked it up with trembling fingers. Inside, one sentence in black ink. You should have stayed away from him. I gasped. The paper fluttered to the floor like a dead bird. My pulse roared in my ears. I stumbled back, slamming the door, fumbling with the deadbolt. The chain. The chair under the knob. My phone, where's my phone? I dialed Vincent. Straight to voicemail. I dialed 911. Hung up before it rang. What would I say? Asterisk a note? From who? The Mafia? Asterisk. I dialed the penthouse landline. It rang twice. Ronald's voice, rough with exhaustion. Alexandra? I froze. Ronald. My voice cracked. There's a note. Under my door. It says, asterisk don't move. Asterisk, the line went dead. 37 seconds later, yes, I counted. Tires screeched outside.
Door slammed.
Footsteps pounded up the stairs. The door flew open before I could reach it. Ronald filled the frame, coat unbuttoned, gun in his hand, eyes wild. Vincent and Marco behind him, weapons drawn. He took one look at my face and crossed the room in 3 strides. His hands cupped my cheeks, thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't felt fall. Are you hurt? I shook my head.
Couldn't speak. He saw the note on the floor.
Picked it up with 2 fingers like it might bite. Read it. His expression went from fury to something colder, calculation. Moretti, he said. Not a question. Vincent was already on his phone, barking orders in Italian too fast to follow. Ronald pulled me against his chest. I resisted for half a second, then collapsed into him, breathing in cedar and gunpowder and home. I'm sorry, he whispered into my hair. Asterisk Dio, I'm so sorry. Asterisk. I clung to his coat. You fired me. I was wrong. His voice broke. I was scared. I thought. He stopped. It doesn't matter. You're not safe here. You're coming back. I pulled back, searching his face. And Adriano? Ronald's eyes filled. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. Keeps asking for his Miss A. The fight went out of me. Outside, the city woke up indifferent. Inside my tiny studio, the note lay on the floor like a loaded gun. Ronald picked it up, folded it once, tucked it into his pocket. This ends tonight, he said. I nodded. Because what else was there?
He took my hand.
Vincent grabbed my duffel. Marco cleared the hallway. We left the note behind. But the threat followed. And the line between us snapped, frayed, reknotted, pulled tighter than ever.